Two different models to help us represent percents. We're going to talk about a 10 by 10 grid. You can see that there are 10 squares across and 10 squares down. We're also going to talk about a percent bar. So we're going to talk about 10 by 10 grid first. So there are 100 squares right here, and we know that a percent is always out of 100. So let's say I wanted to model, 20%. So if I wanted to model 20%, that means that percent means per 100. So that means I need to color in 20 out of these 100 squares. So I need to color in all of these squares and all of these. Okay, so that would be 20 out of 100, which is 20%. This is not the only way to model 20%. What if I wanted this square, this square, this square? What if I wanted those colored in? That's also 20 squares. That's also 20%. Sometimes it looks a little bit different than 20 all in a row. If I wanted to model, let's see. If I wanted to model 7%, let's say I wanted to say, okay, I want to see what 7% looks like. You could color in 7 squares. Let's say I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. 7 out of 100, 7%. So 10 by 10 grid, it can help you figure it out. Now, sometimes you have a grid that is not 10 by 10. Maybe you have 5 by 5. This is not cute, but you get the picture. So if you had 5 by 5, and you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colored in. So a 5 by 5 grid means that we have 25 total, and we have 6 out of 25 colored in. Now this is equivalent. So if I multiplied 25 times 4 to get 100, I have to do the same thing up here. So this is equivalent to 24%. Okay? So that's how we use a 10 by 10 grid, and then here's some little bonus information about a grid that does not have 10 squares. Let's talk about a percent bar, also known as a strip diagram. So this is basically showing one whole right here. So this is 0, and this is 100%. So we're going to use the top of it to help us represent percents. You guys have seen this before. We've talked about this before. We're just kind of going over it one more time. So like I said, let's just use this to represent a whole. And let's say this is 1 right here. So if I drew a line right down the middle, I know on my percent side, this would have to be 50%, because 50% is exactly in the middle of 0% and 100%. So down on the bottom, I'm between 0 and 1. What is halfway between 0 and 1? Well, you could represent it a couple different ways. You could say 1/2, or you could say 0 and 5/10. All right. What if I wanted to add more lines? Okay. So on my percent side up top, this would be 25%. This would be 75%. And this would be halfway in between 0 and 1/2 is actually 1/4, or 25/100. And then halfway in between 1/2 and 1 whole is 3/4. Because you see how now we have our square broken up into fourths, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the same as 75/100. Now I could use this to help me represent something else too. What if I wasn't talking about in between 0 and 1? What if I was talking about in between 0 and 4? Then this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3. So that means that 50% of 4 is 2. 2 is half of 4. 2 is 50% of 4. All right, let's draw another one. Let's say I had a question that was asking me, what is 75% of 32? So I could use a picture to help me represent the scenario. Remember the top, we want to help by representing this as a percent. So if I had somewhere between 0 and 100%, now I'm trying to find the number I'm trying to find the percent of is 32. So that means I'm trying to find a part of 32. So I'm going to start at 0 and go all the way to 32. Now, what I have to really pay attention to is what percent I need to show up on here. So it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense to count by tens, because then I would have 10, 20, 30, 40, and 75 wouldn't show up there. So let's split it up the way I did before. Let's split it up into 4 sections. So this would be 25%, 50%, 75%. Now we have to figure out where that would match up, what number is going to go right here. So my whole is 32. I have 4 sections, so I'm trying to divide 32 by 4. So 32 divided by 4 is 8. So I'm going to count by 8s. 8, 16, 24, 32. Do you see how 75% and 24 match up? So that means that 24 is 75% of 32. Okay, so that is a basic overview of 10 by 10 grids and strip diagrams.